and I apologise for the bad language she uses. She writes, "Shouldn't women be free to wear whatever the heck they like?" Yes, she says. Yes, she says? Wow. Freedom.
But we should say even today that there is disagreement about the role of women in churches. It's fine. Some churches say that actually women shouldn't speak. Some say that they do. In my church, women don't preach, and I'm fine with that.
In my church, they do.
Yeah. The role of women in churches. It's fine. Some churches say that actually women shouldn't speak. Some say that they do. In my church, women don't preach, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, you laugh loud.
And Paul, the Apostle Paul, is talking about a church gathering in worship, what happens in worship, and he says to women that a woman, and it depends a bit on the translation, but it says that married women definitely should cover their head when they pray or prophesy. And actually some churches still do that. I don't have a problem with that. My own church chooses not to. It's something that there's a little bit of disagreement with that, but I didn't run away from it. Yes, there is a head covering, but what the verse does not say, does not imply...
Actually, my background is head covering.
There you
I'm
go.
Mennonite.
There you go.
All my women wear head coverings.
Okay.
So actually, my background is head covering.
There you
I'm
go.
Mennonite.
There you go.
All my women wear head coverings.
Okay.
So...
Yeah, you laugh loud.
Over to you, not to Jay. Not Jay. Why are you dictating to this woman? Why are you dictating to Lizzie? Why are you dictating to Lizzie?
I thought you are for women rights, huh?
Are you scared?
Yes, speak.
Just fear you.
I'm very scared. Yes, Jay, I'm scared. Why are you controlling her, Jay? Notice how Jay controls her. He controls it, say, "This will be your last 5 minutes," he says. Why does he control you?
Are you threatening her last 5 minutes?
Why does Jay Smith control you?
She said yes.
All right. We're going to continue these attacks against me. Go ahead. Run this one down.
Right, thank you.
Why are you controlling her, Jay?
Yeah, you laugh loud.
I might point out that in the book of Deuteronomy, in chapter 25, verse 11, it says that if two men are struggling with each other and a woman were to grab the other man by a certain area in defense of her own husband, then you are to cut off her hand and show her no mercy. Well, here we have a biblical verse about the cutting off of a hand for a certain reason. And one might say that this does not seem to be a very good reason, because in a situation like that, naturally the woman would rush forward to help her husband. And it seems that her offense was that she grabbed the other man where she was not supposed to.
Leviticus chapter 21, verse number 9. Suppose a priest's daughter makes herself unclean by becoming a prostitute. Then she brings shame on her father. She must be burned to death. Why? You see what's happening? She brings shame to her father.
you people are pouring oil on fire and contributing to the increasing Islamophobia in Europe. And this was paralleled historically by the way the Nazis were increasingly demonized, so the Jews were increasingly demonized by the Nazis. I made that specific historical parallel. Now, in your now infamous article on the hijab, you ask, what is International Women's Day? To celebrate women and to bring to the world's attention wherever they are oppressed or treated unequally because of their gender. Surely, what is a hijab about, she claims? It's an outward reminder of female oppression, she claims, by a religion that subjugates women in almost every area of life. Now, before we look at the true function of the hijab, which we'll come to, we need to ask, are Christians being hypocritical here? Let's look at the New Testament references to women and their status. Remember, if Lizzie is not to be a hypocrite and operate blatant double standards, she must acknowledge that what the New Testament says about women and accept it as true and from God. So let's see how she deals with these passages. Let a woman learn in silence and submission. I permit no woman to teach or have authority over a man. She must keep silent. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Yet she will be saved through having babies, provided they continue in faith, love and holiness with modesty. 1 Timothy 2:11. So women have to be quiet and they'll be saved through having babies. That's according to the Apostle Paul. Another example, as in all the churches of the saints, women should be silent in the churches, for they are not permitted to speak. They should be subordinate, as the law also says. If there's anything they desire to know, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is shameful for women to speak in church. Shameful. Let anyone who claims to be a prophet or have spiritual powers must recognize that what I'm writing to you is a commandment from the Lord. A commandment from the Lord. Anyone who does not recognize this is not to be recognized. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 14 verses 33 to 38. Let's continue. I want you to understand that Christ is the head of every man, and the husband is the head of his wife. And then he goes on and says, any woman who prays or prophesies with her head unveiled disgraces her husband. It's the one and the same thing as having her head shaved. And then it goes on, a man ought to have his head, or not to have his head veiled, because he is the image and reflection of God. But the woman is a reflection of man. A woman is not made in the image of God, according to Paul. Indeed, man was not made for the woman, but woman was made for the man. Okay? And that was, sorry, it's 1 Corinthians chapter 11 verses 2 to 16. Remember, she believes in the Bible. She must believe this is from God, this is the word of the Lord. If she disagrees with this, then what does it say here? If she disagrees with this teaching, then she has no status at all. Finally, it says here, I want women to dress modestly, with decency and propriety, adorning themselves, not with elaborate hairstyles or gold or pearls or expensive clothes. This is 1 Timothy 2:9. Now compare this with Lizzie's stated view, and I apologize for the bad language she uses. She writes, shouldn't women be free to wear whatever the heck they like? Yes, she says. Yes, she says? Wow. Now, we can see now that Lizzie is a secularist, a liberal Westerner who ignores the teaching of the Bible that she claims to follow. These passages do not teach gender equality at all, but the subordination of women to men. Women must be silent. Women must be saved by having babies. Women are not made in the image of God, but the image of a man, whereas the husbands are made in the image of God. The husband is the head of the wife, and so on. So much for International Women's Day. It's clear that Lizzie's militant feminism and egalitarian views are not biblical at all.